Hi everyone. So this is Sahil from Chess Assist, and today we're going to look at a very interesting game. This was the typical Magnus quiz, as we have come to know nowadays. All his opponents have suffered in the end game, where they are slowly, gradually crushed, and they don't even see it coming. And this is going to be a typical example for that. So this was a game played in the Magnus Carlsen World Tour, where just yesterday, where he played a marvelous endgame and converted the game into a win. So this, of course, this game is between Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, and he'll be playing Peter Leko, who is a well-known grandmaster and is a known technician. And to defeat him in the endgame is a great feat in itself. So let's begin with the game, and you can have a look at this position first. In this position, white has the queen and bishop, and black has the queen and knight. So usually queen and knight are considered to be better, but the knight usually should have some square, which is very crucial in the game, and that way it can have access to the opponent's camp. Here the black knight does not really have any great squares. The e4 square is covered, the c4 square can be taken away, and the f5 square means nothing because the bishop is going to sit on e5. Now if you look at white's bishop, it's an excellent piece. It will sit on e5, looking at both corners of the board, and it will be very difficult for black to dislodge. So here definitely white is better, and this is not really helped by the fact that black's king is much more open than white's king with his two pawns pushed to h6 and g5. So white is going to use these numeral weaknesses to kind of push black into a bind and then slowly but surely improve until he can win the game. So let's see how Magnus Carlsen squeezed this game out. So he played the move queen a4, attacking two of black's weaknesses, and after queen d7, taking the queen off the 8th rank, he's going to use the 8th rank for himself very cleverly. Now queen b4, attacking the knight, and the knight has to move, and now queen b8. So now the queen is spinning the knight. It's also tying down the queen to defense of the a7 pawn sometimes, as well as the knight. And it will also help push his queenside pawns up the board. And black doesn't have any pawn moves. Pushing these pawns will only weaken his king further, and pushing a6 is basically sacrificing a pawn for free. So here black plays king f7. He is simply waiting, and this is the toughest job when you are defending a position, to just sit there and hope that your opponent does not break through, because it requires infinite patience, and even then there is no guarantee it's going to work. If you give one side infinite moves, obviously they're going to make a lot of improvements. So here bishop e5, bringing the bishop to an excellent square, and just what else, king g8, there is no move for black. If a6 then queen a8 of course, and if h5, what are these pawns really doing? So after bishop e5, king g8, b4, so the bishop sits strong on e5, and white is going to use this dominance over the dark squares to push his pawns up the board. So king f7, a4, king e7, a5, king d8, and a6. So now the pawn on a7 is fixed on a dark square, and the knight on c8 is tied to defending it. At least one of the pieces has to stay there and defend the pawn. Even if the queens were not there, for example, you remove the queens from the board, the bishop could go to b8, and that would simply tie up black's pieces forever. And this is a horrible position for black. It's completely lost. And on top of that, white is gradually going to use these pawns to create a pass pawn on the king side. So now king e8, king h2, improving the king's position, king f7, queen b7. So now black cannot really afford to take, because then of course white is going to queen. So king e8, and now g4, fixing the pawn on h6, and now preparing to create a pass pawn on the king side. Now knight e7, queen b8, knight c8, and king g3. So improving the king further, and now white is ready to push with h4 or f4. So realizing this plan would have made black feel that he's going to lose this game pretty soon. So he tried to change the formation of his pieces, but it did not really help him. It only accelerated his defeat. and he plays the plan of putting his king on d8, queen b7, and knight d6. So now he's trying to attack the white queen and then maybe bring the knight to a better square somewhere. But unfortunately, he has overlooked a simple sequence, and I'm going to ask you to pause the video and think for a while, what should white play here? So the simple sequence of moves simply allows white to take over the game, and black is completely lost in this position. And for that, what he does is he simply captures the queen, and after queen takes d7, king takes d7, takes the knight, and after takes, black is threatening e5, so f4 is the crucial move here, and now white is completely winning because next move he'll go h4, create a pass pawn on the king side, and then black's king has to come and deal with the pass pawn while white's king will go and finish off black on the queen side. So let's see how did it go ahead in practice. King e7, h4, king f6, takes, and simply takes. King takes d5, and now king f3, king g6, king f4. You can see the path for white's king is very simple, and king f6, g5, king g6, king e5, takes, and after a couple of moves, black takes on d4, but after b5, he's completely lost because white is going to queen first. And this was a very interesting game because it showed the class of Magnus Carlsen. His endgame play is simply exquisite. Uh, it's hard to imagine that uh, anybody can really match him in endgame skills in the world right now. And you see how he slowly managed to improve his pieces until black was so tied up that he could not really move any of his pieces, starting with this basic pin and then pushing his pawns up the board, and then improving his king, and finally getting a passed pawn on the king side until black simply panicked and self-destructed. So this was a very interesting game because it shows us the class of Magnus Carlsen and how we should always try to create a bind on our opponent's position, because psychologically it's very difficult to play for one side when they have nothing else to do than just move the king around. Now Leko could have waited here for a while and at least asked Carlsen to prove the win, but he simply self-destructed because psychologically it's very difficult to play such a position. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Do like and subscribe and check out other content on the channel. There are plenty of fun videos to watch, and do take care.